Good day, fellow deal makers. Welcome to the Deal Scout. On today's show, we're going to have a conversation with Sean Phalon, and he's going to give us an idea, an overview for investors and deal makers in the residential area on what to look for. So, Sean, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah. So, why don't you give us a little bit of an idea of who you are and what you do?
Yes. So my name is Sean Phalon. I've been in the mortgage financing for almost 10 years now, and I own an independent branch office here. I've owned several of them. We have a team that handles everything from the start of the process all the way to the close. I run our business here. I'm also a real estate investor as well, and all things real estate. I love it, financing it, finding it, investing it. Pretty much all things real estate, but been doing that for almost 10 years now, and it's been great. We're
Cool,
up
man.
here in the Bergen County area of New Jersey.
Okay, right on. How'd you get your start into real estate? Like, was your family into it, or you kind of fell into it? What did that look like?
Yeah, so I really didn't have any family that was prominent in it at all. My start was pretty wild. I was out of college. I dropped out. I was never a school guy. And so I wanted to go into architecture. Wasn't really sure what I was going to do, but couldn't afford architecture school at the time. So I said, I'm going to try to get into something with finance. And they either need money or they need something to do with their money.
Mhm.
And that's translated well into the mortgage business. And so fast forward, I applied to about 63 job applications in 2 days, literally on my Palm Pixie in my car. And the first two companies to call me back were mortgage companies, and interviewed them back to back the same day. Chose to go with one, and here we are, almost 10 years later.
Awesome. Awesome. So, being in this business, you're seeing, especially at the time of this recording, May of 2022 is when we're recording this. There's a lot going on in the industry, and I know that we can't discuss specific, interest rates now and such. But what do you see in the residential market right now for home buyers and for investors? Where's there some challenges, and where's there some opportunity?
Yeah, the biggest challenge I would say, Josh, is probably inventory. Right? We have inflation, which is just too many dollars going after too few things, right? And so there was a lot of money printed and thrown into the marketplace over the past 2 years, and now you have that trying to find something in the marketplace to be plugged into. Translate that to housing. Right now, as we speak, there's about just shy of 1 million houses for sale across the entire United States. To put it in perspective, there should be about 2.5 million right now, upwards to close to three on any given market. So, on top of an inventory shortage, obviously we have inflation that's causing interest rates to go up. But because of an inventory shortage, you have increased bidding wars, and then you also have an increased expense, which is the higher interest rate because of inflation. So, those are the two big affordability challenges, to where you're seeing somebody who's a $1 million buyer becoming an $800,000 buyer, an 800,000 becomes a $600,000 buyer, and so on.
Got it. So, all right. So, talk to us on the investor side. How'd you get your start in investing, and what kind of investments do you typically do?
So I love investing in ventures, right? Obviously, you got your standard 401ks, which I participate in, and IRAs and other types of standard investment accounts. But I love being an operator. I love being involved in what's going on. And maybe that's my control freak side coming out. But as far as real estate investing, I love it for its tax benefits. That's probably, um, you know, what actually got me interested in it in the first place. And as I was a teenager, some family friends were also interested in investing. So I kind of watched it from afar and always wanted to experience that. But, being in a very high tax uh, type of environment that we're in here in my state, real estate has some phenomenal benefits. Buying properties under LLCs, we flip properties. On a contract of property down in Atlanta right now. Certain areas of the South have much better returns than up here up north as well. But a lot of property trading, hold it for a few years, see the appreciation, sell it off, keep it under an LLC for tax benefits, those types of deals.
Got it. All right. So, what was your first deal in real estate? What was your first investment? What did that look like?
So the first investment was a flip, short-term flip. We We found a property off market, kind of just a for sale by owner situation, looking to just get rid of it. His mother had passed away, and so he was willing to sell it because it stuck back into the 1940s. The house still had original, pretty much everything, which was kind of cool. And so we took that 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath house and we turned that into a 4-bed, 2.5 bath house, and converted it, kind of forced appreciation there in that particular zip code. A finished out attic with certain egresses can actually be legally considered a 4th bedroom. So obviously it's really important to know, right, where you're investing and where you can kind of force that value. So we took that, made it a 3-story, completed 4.5 bed, 2.5 bath house, and we're able to make some good cash on it.
Very cool. Worst deal ever. We talked about your first deal. What was the worst deal that you ever got yourself into, and what did you learn?
Um, I'm not a very patient person. So, um, we've had situations where it has just been delay after delay after delay. And I can think of a situation where actually, going on, I think it was 4 months delayed at the time. And so that caused financial changes, that caused rate adjustments on the carrying costs. Obviously, the longer you wait, the world changes. And that really adjusted our numbers. Thankfully enough, it was at the point where we'd had enough margin in there to where it was still profitable, right? And it was just a little bit less than we thought. But it wasn't more the numerics of it and the financial part of it that was the worst part. It was just the uncertainty and the constant delays, right? That you're having to emotionally go through. And every investor out there can attest to that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And being patient as an investor is a learned skill set, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's not something that comes natural for hard driving entrepreneurs and people who have a mission to accomplish in this, world. And you know, I want to know from your perspective, what do you put in place now, and what could other investors put into place to guard yourself against your own impatience or your own idiosyncrasies? Like how do you work through that?
Well, that's a good question. I guess I can probably give what I do, right? I'm a pretty wound up, ultra A type kind of a personality. My disc test is all high D. Pretty much that's the only thing on it. For me, what I do is I really, because I think from a lot of folks with my personality, what you're doing is you're trying to create something for yourself, for your family, right? There's a real rock solid reason behind what you're doing. Maybe it's I want to get my family into a great situation in a few years. I want to leave a massive inheritance to my children's children, right? So there's usually some very powerful goal that you're pursuing, right? And so when you feel that there's a delay, when you feel that there is something holding you back or someone, you almost get, for lack of a better term, like vicious. Like, I want to remove whatever this thing is out of my way because it's holding me back, right? It's now my enemy. And so I had that mindset for quite some time. And the one thing that has helped me is putting into perspective life, and you've heard so many people say life is short, right? You got to hurry up and do what you can, which is true, right? You don't want to waste time. But I think over recent years, especially over the past 3 years, I've learned that life is long, that there's a lot you can do in 24 hours in a day. There's a lot you can do in 4 or 5 days in a week. Even. There's connections you can get if you lose a deal, and if something doesn't work out, there is 7 billion people that you can work with instead of that one person. If a deal goes sideways, if there's money lost, that there is an abundance of opportunity out there that you can also pursue, and that it is you and the character that you are, the kind of person that you are, your values, your work ethic, seeing those opportunities, that skill set that you have, that is going to constantly bring those other opportunities to you. So if something doesn't work out, yes, it's heart wrenching as that type of person, but at the same time, understanding that what got me here and what gets anybody else there is the type of person that they are. And as long as they maintain that consistency, those opportunities will continue to come.
Yeah. You You mentioned like the some of the paradigm of what you're learning in terms of characteristics and values and virtues that you have. You know, life is long, so you're learning to be a long term investor, a long term thinker. For me, that was a challenge myself because I wanted quick wins, right?
Yeah.
Because that felt good. The dopamine hits, the grand slams, aiming for the fences. But you could also go broke chasing big deals. You could go broke, making risky investments and such. So that is something that I am relearning and I'm 40 years old. I don't know. I always hear people say, I wish I would have known that when I was younger. I don't know what I would have done with that information, but at least I'm learning it now. When we talk about like personal growth and mindset and these kind of things, what are some areas that you're focused on right now, and maybe some resources that you're applying to your life to improve?
The big thing for me right now is is balance. There's a point I'm married, I'm a father, and there's a point, and I always refer back to this when we're talking about like personal development, personal growth. There's a point where for about 3.5 years, I wasn't home for dinner Monday through Friday for about 3.5 years. And I look back and I was like, man, I missed those years, right? I missed that time, even if it was 45 minutes or 30 minutes at dinner just to catch up with everybody in the family. And for some people, they're like, oh, I do that all the time. And other people are shocked, right? Depending upon where you're at with this thing. And for me, it's finding that balance. And I took a lot of time, especially during 2020, the pandemic, when you were forced to find some kind of balance because you couldn't go anywhere, especially where you were at in the country. And you had to work from home. If you had kids in school, they were home for most of the time. So you had to figure out how to take this work thing, this career thing, what your passion is about, and then to compartmentalize that and also make time for what's truly, you know. And so for me, really scheduling and putting some in the beginning of the day, some very deep 3 to 4 hours of just deep work, uninterrupted, unhindered type of work that actually sets the rest of the business in motion has been key for me. Now I am in the office, or I call it my chair, 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday. And Friday, I absolutely refuse to be in the office. I will not be in the office if there's anything I need to catch up on from the week. I will do that on a Friday, but Friday is a day where now I spend time with my family in the morning. I have breakfast with my wife. We catch up on things at home, any things that need to be done with our family. That's really Friday. I found that in my crazy world, if I got done with work at Friday at 7:30 every week, then by the time I got home, I was still wound up, right? And then you need time to dial down, which really doesn't happen till like Saturday at like 11:30 a.m., right? And then you're just starting to grill for the weekend, right? And but then you're shot, right? You don't want to be like bothered, right? And that's not giving the best of me to like my family. So now I take that Friday to completely wind down. By Friday night, I'm like all there. Saturday is a day solely for my family. Sunday is kind of a day as well for them, especially in the mornings. And then towards the afternoon and the evening, I'm kind of ramping ready for Monday. And that's really helped me a lot. Having a 32-hour work week, which sounds crazy, especially in my business. And I was one of those people who swore, Josh, it's impossible. Don't listen to people tell you that nonsense. Those are a bunch of lazy moves, right? And I pounded the fist on that for so long. But now, after understanding and forcing myself to do that, it's amazing what can be accomplished with uninterrupted work at the beginning of the day. The key things that I need to do, such as prospecting, building my business, managing the systems and making sure the systems are running properly so the people in the systems can do their jobs properly. And then forcing myself to be present where I need to be present at.
Yeah, that is so cool. I think as an entrepreneur, there was almost like this badge of courage for how much you worked. And I worked at some
Yes.
places where, in venture capital or whatever, where the first one in, last one out, always available, always by your phone, right? Like shows dedication. And what that did for me is it absolutely burnt me out, trying to build startups, trying to build multiple things. And I wound up in the hospital. And I, from there, I had to relearn how to work. Man, it feels like my whole life as an entrepreneur, and I'd love your opinion of this. It seems like I'm constantly like getting to a level, getting knocked back down, building up a little bit stronger, better, smarter, faster, knocked down. Do you experience those ebbs and flows in your deal making journey?
100%. I mean, what you said of wearing that badge of honor of being the hardest worker, which by the way is a myth, right? There's so many other ways to be the hardest worker in the room, right? But we think of that as time, right, and activity. I deal with that all the time. I think I'm in one now, right? Only recently did I start this type of new schedule, and it has given me so much peace of mind. And looking back, just like you said, you think, boy, what could I have done if I'd implemented this sooner,
Mm-hmm.
right? And those meetings I took and those times I sacrificed, was anything did out of that? And so now it's looking at what actually makes the metrics work. So I'm kind of a number cruncher type of a person, and so I'm big on working metrics and the law of averages and working the numbers, and numbers will kind of put everything into place. And so that's one thing that we've really changed, especially over the past couple of years. But I never did that before, and as like you said, an entrepreneur, it sounds crazy that you would do that, right? But sometimes you're so busy that you never take the time to invest in doing what's best, I think.
Yeah. Especially so on the disc scale, I'm high I with a like secondary D, right? So I'm a hard driver, um, where you're full D. So for full D, the dominant, driver, um, you know, turning off work and delegating out are some of probably your biggest challenges, right? Putting systems and processes in place because it's just like get out of my way, I'll do it myself. How are you learning to work through that, and what are you putting into place to protect you from you?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Protect you from you. So true. Because we're the worst destroyer of our own schedules, and we're the worst destroyer of our own systems. Because sometimes we think, oh, I found a way to do it better. Give it to me, right? Let me handle it. You know, a couple years ago, about 3 years ago, I revamped a little bit of our operation system, and we still use that same system now today. And of course, over the years, you refine it, right? And you tweak the
Yep.
system, get better at it. And what we did something was what they call sometimes franchising. I didn't know we were doing it at the time, but then later when I was just describing it to somebody, they said, "Oh, you franchised it." I said, "What does that mean?" Right? And they basically say you put together the process and the steps of whatever that role is, right? For me, it could be processing, it could be the loan partner at the beginning of the process and document whatever that step of the process is. You put together a plan and the exact steps to where somebody, if they were starting a quote unquote franchise of doing that, they would be able to take the guidebook and learn to do it themselves immediately. And so
Totally.
that's what we began doing, because then I basically put exactly what I wanted, how I wanted it to be done into this plan, that if you just follow the plan, the system works itself. And to your point of just being too busy, I think the problem was I never took the time to actually do that. And when you're a high D personality, sometimes you think that somehow magically your thoughts of how you want something to get done just somehow embeds itself into your team. And of course, like that never happens until you actually sit down and do the training. But what I found was there was and listen, it took a lot of time, and it even took a little bit of a hit in business to do that years ago. But the peace of mind that I had since, knowing that things were being done the way I wanted them to be done in that franchised way, that has helped protect me from myself, and allow me to focus on what I do best.
Yeah. I'm learning to fall in love with systems and processes because I'm not a natural system and process operations kind of person, right? I'm the visionary, the sales guy, the people guy. Me sitting down and starting building a process is just brutal. So we're like hiring consultants, bringing on strategic partners, and it's brutal for me. But every time I release a task and I no longer have to do it, it really brings me great joy, right?
Yes.
Um, what task are you the best at? or activity, business activity? And what is your like kryptonite where you look at it and you're like, oh man, that's going to kill me?
I think what I'm best at, especially in my particular business of the mortgage business, is going out prospecting, making new relationships, making new business relationships, and not just doing that, but identifying the viable ones, right? Identifying good business potential, where to expand. Because I love studying markets, I love understanding, you know, what the best is and where to put my time and being very tactical and strategic about it. That's definitely, I think, what is, if I'm going to say best, what has made me the most money
Hmm.
over the past 9 or 10 years. As far as what I am terrible at, it is trying to do any kind of tedious, over analytical tasks, such as viewing a document. Um, you know, even back to the early years of my career, looking over tax returns of a self-employed borrower, which is every loan officer's nightmare, you know. But could you do it? Yeah. But it's amazing. No matter how good you get at something, you may be able to do it faster, but it's exhausting, right?
Yeah.
I feel exhausted after doing that for 45 minutes. Whereas next week, I'm going to be on 6 flights in 4 days, meeting with a bunch of new potential business partners. I'll be more energized when I get back than before I left, right? And that's when you find your sweet spot. So
Yeah, no, I'm very similar. The task could literally take me 5 minutes,
yeah,
but I'm done with that task. For me, it's um, like updating audio or titles or writing a description for a podcast interview or type, you know, like that kind of stuff just completely wipes me out. So I had to hire someone just to get those small things off my plate, and it doesn't matter the cost because my value is better served over here putting deals together, right? But it's hard for people like us to release that control because we're like, I could do it, and I could probably do it better,
yeah.
but it's going to kill me to do it. Do you
I,
still get
yeah,
that temptation to dive back in?
I do. And I think it's because like you sound very much like a visionary, right?
Hmm.
Like I highly recommend the book Rocket Fuel, right? Sounds
Love
like
it.
you may have read it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Oh my gosh, such a good self-revealing book, right? And so
Hmm.
practical. And I think as a visionary, one of our great attributes, but also crippling ones, is that we can sometimes see it so clearly how we want it done and what we want accomplished that we also think because we see it so clearly in our mind, we're the best ones to do it. When sometimes the execution is so much better handled by somebody, we just need to communicate how we want it better.
Yeah. Yeah. On the DISC scale, the DISC scale, people who have the S or the C, like actually enjoy that kind of work.
Yeah.
The checklist, the task list, the details, the dissecting of things, the filling out forms. Like my wife enjoys that stuff. She's a high S. She enjoys that, and like seeing a checklist that she has to do the same thing over and over doesn't bother her. She puts in headphones. She crushes it. For me, I'll jump out of a window, man. Can't do it. Right? Um, what what is your wife on the disc scale?
She's more SC,
Yeah, yeah,
much like yours, but she's also very artistic.
cool.
Um, Whereas, you know, she can adapt to being dominant and being a driver in some ways if it's within the like the artistic or within the lane that she's good at, right? If it's in her, if like she's an amateur photographer. She's actually awesome. She's won some national graphic contests.
Wow.
Yeah, she's really good. Whereas it's so funny if I were to talk to her about just anything that maybe she knew moderately some or nothing about, she'd be like, I don't care, tell me, I have no idea, I'm overwhelmed, like I have no idea what you're talking about. But then if I were to step in and start messing around with something on photography, she'd smack my hand away and be like, what are you doing? Knock it off. Like, I got it, right? Stay out of my business kind of thing. Like, I'm on top of it because she knows it,
Yeah,
right? So in that sense, she's very more of an adaptable driver, but much more SC.
yeah. Extroverted or introverted?
She's definitely introverted.
She's like she could be my wife's twin. My wife does photography. She's an introvert, high S, loves the detail work, loves editing photos and doing that stuff. So they might be best buddies. S. So it seems as though opposites tend to attract. And in the
Yes.
book Rocket Fuel, I love that book. That group did an incredible job. We're fans of EOS. Huge fans of the group that runs that organization with David Mann and Derek. Great group. Um, in that book, they talk about the visionary and integrator. Which one are you?
I'm probably about 70% visionary.
Cool. Now, we know the skill sets of a visionary, typically with sales, prospecting, people orientated, lacking in detailed systems processes. So in your organization, are tell us about your organization as a whole in terms of the people that you have on place, the different types of partners that you have brought in to help you build this, and maybe even some metrics of what you guys have accomplished over the years of you running this org.
Yeah. So my first priority was to get somebody in operations, right? Because salespeople, business development, all of that is a strong suit. So my number one priority originally was to find somebody who could take the operations off my plate, any kind of paperwork tasks, any type of process oriented pieces of the mortgage process. So I right now I have a gentleman by the name of Ed with me. He's been with me for almost 5 years now, and I profiled him, and what I needed, I was kind of looking for somebody who was used to doing the same kind of tasks again and again, but who like kind of figuring it out, but also had a little bit of a competitiveness to them to where they wanted to like get it done, right? They wanted to kind of, push a loan faster, get the process done quicker, So I was almost kind of looking for like that, like video gamer type of person where they could sit there and they could go through something, sit there for 9 hours straight, but have a competitive side to them.
Totally.
And so he actually fit the role like almost perfectly. And now he's a dear friend of mine, and he was bilingual, which was awesome. And he can sit there and he loves picking every little thing apart. He loves the aha moment of discovering something and figuring it out, and figuring out the way the puzzle's going to work. He loves it when the process goes smooth, and he's always trying to tweak things himself. So he really takes ownership of that. And his role is he runs the operation. So anytime a deal comes in, and he handles it really from the time that our front end administrative partners hand it off to him all the way until closing. So he's a huge key
Awesome.
element.
How did you find a good operations driven person?
Oh, a lot of phone calls and a lot of calls out to my network. Um, total like boots on the ground, voice on the phone organically. He was kind of a very close acquaintance at the time, and he was a mechanic. He was in the car business, but I kind of liked that because I said, if you're used to looking over integral pieces of an engine, putting it together, picking it apart, understanding how it works, memorizing what needs to be done again and again, could we translate that into the financial world? I don't know, right? Maybe we can. And so we talked the one time, and he said, I'm trying to get out of this. Definitely a ceiling over my head, and I want to get into something where I think I can like use my brain a little bit more. And I said, well, look, I'm going to have you answer a bunch of these questions, see if you fit this profile, and maybe this will work out. And he did. And he was my first pure hire, Josh, that I made based upon personality profiling. And he is one of the best, if not the best hire I've ever had.
Super cool. As you're building this, what does the future look like for you? Like, what are some goals that you guys have as an organization?
As a team, obviously production, we have production goals. As a team, we do, somewhere in the ballpark of about $100 million a year. Now it's kind of a very difficult market because inventory is extremely low. We would like to get that up to double to hit that $200 million mark in about 12 months. We're doing that through some strategic partners, expanding out into Florida, continually growing our presence in Atlanta, where we do about a third of our business now, going places where the clientele from where we're at here in the New York metro area is actually flocking to, right? And following really where the money is going, essentially, and where great opportunity is in the future. We adjust our sales systems for that. So that's one goal. As far as like goals within our group, right? I don't think you need a ton of people to do a lot of volume. the way our system is. So a goal internally would be to have each of our guys, right, closing a certain amount. They all have their personal goals. We coach them. I have a formal call with them every Monday afternoon, going over their goals and tracking them week by week. So that's very fulfilling in it. So we want them to reach their goals as well, and seeing them do that, and seeing some of them reach their goals ahead of time when than they thought is really neat.
When it comes to training and working with salespeople, right? Your first integral hire was the operations, but you guys now have a team of people who are out selling deals, right?
Yep.
How many salespeople do you have at your organization?
On just our team, it's 4 of us.
Okay. So when it
Yep.
comes to managing, other salespeople, what are some things that you've learned to do and not to do when managing other salespeople?
Yeah. So um, I'd say one of the first things I learned is not to manage too many too thin. My first management position a few years back was in more of a consumer direct model. We had a call center of 16 people. And I was in my early 20s at the time, managing this, and we recruited them all just bare bones. And I came away from that experience going, oh my gosh, I'll never do that again. And what I meant is I'll never do that again is I'll never hire so many people and be stretched so thin on a 24-hour day. So I think for me, I've learned a lot about myself, and I'd rather deal with people who see the business the same way I do because they're in my role. So I can coach them the way I operate, right? Obviously, my administrative staff, they need to be completely different than me, right? But the salespeople, right, for the type of roles that they have, they need to be similar because the system that I have, I want to duplicate into them and I want to teach them. So for me, it's definitely not stretching myself too thin because I'd rather go a mile deep with somebody than a mile wide with 10 people, and so I've found that for me, the way I roll, 4 is good for me. 4, maybe 5 at the most is good for me. If it doubles, I'm finding another version of me to help manage that because I want to make sure that they're given the time, the attention that they need.
Yeah, super cool. When you work with salespeople, are you looking at activity? Are you managing like how many phone calls, how many door knocks, how many emails? Do you or you are you more of a outcome driven? Like, what's your sales manager? I guess how would you say that preference?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both, honestly. So I'm not too keen on just doing saying, well, as long as you do this, I don't care what you do, because I think that can work for a very small amount of salespeople. I think most other people would hang themselves with a long leash. um, so what we do is we have a meeting every Monday. We go over their goals at the beginning of the year. Every December, they have the month of December, and before the end of the year, they need to get me back a business plan for the new year. Actually, each individual will go over it within the first 2 weeks of. Actually, we go. I'm sorry, we go over it the 2 weeks prior to the new year because we want to kick it off right away at the beginning of the year. And some I'll tweak, some I'll say, listen, I think you can do much more than this, and here's why, right? When you're talking about metrics, though, I do manage through metrics, which is if here is your goal, right? What metrics do you have to work in order to get there? And that's what we're going to coach on, and that's what I'm going to manage on because this is the business plan that we've agreed upon at the beginning of the year, right? Rather than just kind of, well, what are you doing? Well, I have 5 meetings 1 week with new realtor referral partners, and the next week I have one. And then I had closed 5 deals last month. Now I'm not closing any this month. Well, inconsistent results typically are, the aftermath of inconsistent activity, right? So it's not just activity; it's what activities are needed and how much of them within a given time to get the specific desired results. Because I do believe it's a numbers game in sales. And I think process wins over personality. So even in the sales process, we have them calling and prospecting for new referral partners on Mondays. On Tuesdays, we actually reach out to the people who are involved in all of the transactions that are going on right now so that we're not missing any potential great contacts. that many times slip through the cracks. On Wednesdays, it's all your past client database, which we touch twice a year. And then on Thursdays, we're dealing with all the folks who haven't gone under contract, and we're prepping them for the weekend. We're kind of priming that pump and prepping them for the weekend and doing rate refreshes and whatnot. So there's a set way of prospecting on those 4 days of the week that we're doing, and we're tracking that pretty tightly.
Yeah, that's super cool. I like what you said. Process beats personality, right? I think
that's not my original, so I can't claim it.
Well, I still like it. You know, there's nothing new under the sun anyways, but that you even remembered and you could spit that back out is super cool. What's your favorite like sales book or, you know, sales resource trainer? You know, what do you follow?
As far as the book that I think really, really kind of brings it home for me, a book would be The One Thing by Gary Keller.
Yeah.
Such a simple book. I read it over like a day and a half on a trip out to California for a conference one time. Completely changed my perspective on how I saw business and how I saw myself. That book actually is what spurred me into doing that deep dive and figuring out what I did best and isolating all of my time into that. So thanks, Gary. But that book is, if there was one book that I would say that everyone needs to read to kind of change their thing as a salesperson, that would be it.
Yeah, super cool. All right, so during this interview, you know, we spoke a lot about deal teams. We spoke a lot about systems, process, visionary. We actually hit a lot on the business like that. Let's talk tactically about the kind of deals that you really enjoy and what makes you stand apart from other brokers, people, you know, doing a similar business.
Yeah, so that's a great question. Kind of the right down the middle of the fairway for us is anything residential 1 to 4 family, which a lot of banks do. I think what sets us apart from that competition, as opposed to other mortgage lenders or brokers or banks out there, is the process that we have, right? So when you have a team like we have here, and we put together a system to where, you know, we'll close loans in 2 weeks sometimes, or even less, because of the efficiency. But anything 1 to 4 family residential, we are pretty strong in the jumbo market and the high end market. We have to be, right? We're basically across the river from New York City. So you have multi-million-dollar condos and houses all around us. So it is a higher end area. And then you know, that's kind of the perfect deal for us. Aside from that, you know, we work with a lot of investors and leveraging private money capital that we have to give them some great advantages as well. But I think really the best thing that we do is when a client comes in, we actually will, through our system, request the documents up front. They can actually automatically upload everything that they need based upon their deal. And we will actually not just look over it and say, yeah, you're good to go. We actually pre-underwrite every file, as long as the client's okay with it. And most of them are. We pre-underwrite every file to where when they go out there to try to make that offer, we can send them an already approved loan along with that offer. And a lot of banks aren't doing that. And we do that to try to give our clients a competitive advantage in the marketplace. And that's something we began doing last year when inventory started to really squeeze, and something that's done very well.
Yeah. So side by side, if people are placing, you know, multiple offers, bid wars, things like that on a project, you coming to the plate with a pre-underwritten loan, right? Like this thing's ready to rock and roll. We could close in a couple weeks versus this person's maybe pre-approved or something like that.
Right.
You know, like the side by side, yours is more valuable, gives the customer the competitive advantage. That's super cool. I like how you put that. As you're building out, what's the next major milestone that you want to accomplish as a deal maker?
So volume wise, we'd like to double that in about 12 months.
Yeah.
That's one. And through some strategic partnerships, we're doing that. Within the team, we want to start another sales group that's similar to the one we have now, and that can take over and kind of hit hard in the South, in Florida, in that Florida, Georgia market. So I don't have to travel around as much. So that's definitely a goal. Those are two very pertinent goals there, you know. And then for me personally in the business, you know, it's, you know, it truly is a level up. not even for position or monetary reasons, but it's just conquering those challenges. I've managed a team for a while, and we've had some great opportunities over the years to partner up with some amazing companies. And so, eventually down the road, in a perfect world, it's getting our production to the point where we merge with some sort of a corporate bank entity, and get some kind of profit sharing with that entity, and really run things on more of a company level rather than an independent branch level. That's kind of the end game for me in this.
Nice, 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 nice. Um, what is a good strategic, in my network, who would be a good strategic partner that I can introduce you to, or maybe one of our audience members are listening in and going, "Hey, I'd be happy to, explore a partnership."
It's a great question. I mean, best partnerships for us are really, seasoned real estate agents or real estate professionals in their right, whether it's a mid-size or large scale, a real estate developer in the residential space that we can help market their properties, partner up with them in some way to help them liquidate those in a great manner and a more efficient manner. And then, those real estate agents and people who run teams especially are great for us because we have a team, right? So we found that our team works well with other good teams also, right? Because they have infrastructure, we have infrastructure, and we can usually mirror their processes. But those ones that are doing some heavy volume in the residential space, those are great people for us to work with.
Cool. What question should I've asked you in this interview that I screwed up and didn't ask you?
you know, I, I guess, the one thing that usually comes up, and you kind of asked it, which is, what are you best at in the mortgage business? What are you best at? And, mortgages are kind of a funny thing. And so sometimes what a lot of people ask me, especially who aren't in the mortgage business, is, do you love it? Right. That's like usually a question is, do you love what you do? Because, the age old mantra, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. Right.
Yeah.
And, I have a kind of a funky philosophy about that. I don't think you need to love the industry you're in. I don't think you need to love even the kind of line of work you're in. I think you need to fall in love with what you do best in it and what can give you the most satisfaction, what can give you the most fulfillment. And that is that networking. I love networking. I'm very much an extrovert. I love meeting new people and making those connections. And if someone told me, do you love mortgages? My funny answer is actually no, right? The mortgage business is not something I love. It's the freedom that this business has given me to kind of create the team and to create the own system that has given me the freedom I want, and being able to meet new people and do what I do best, which is create business relationships.
Super cool. Where can people go, especially if they're looking for, some support, or maybe they're a real estate team and they're looking for another partner to work with in the areas that you guys focus? Where's a good place for people to connect with you and do a deal?
I would say Instagram is probably the easiest one. On Instagram, my Instagram is Phalon, my last name, Phalonfwd. So Phalon forward, kind of a play on words. Um, on Instagram, I'm usually always on there. We do a lot of marketing through there, a lot of advertisements and whatnot. So that's usually a good place to find me.
Super cool. Super cool. Uh, Fellow deal makers in the audience, as always, reach out to our guests and say thank you for being on the show. If what they're saying and the deals that they're talking about look like a good fit for you, you could connect with them directly. Go to the show notes. All their contact information will be in the show notes below. Connect with them directly. Let them know that you heard them on the Deal Scout and that you want to do a deal with them. If you're working on a deal or looking for a specific type of deal, you could always head on over to thedealscout.com, fill out a quick form, and maybe get you on the show next. Till then, talk to you all on the next episode. See you guys.